Good afternoon. I am Dr. James Smith Jr., and welcome back to another edition of the Dr. James Show. And yep, I'm getting another phenomenal guest. This is the second in our series of shows dedicated to Women's History Month. I have my purple on today because the day is Women's History Day, a day in the month-long celebration. We have a phenomenal guest for you. I'm looking forward to diving into her story, her past, her present, her views on Women's History Month. But before we bring out our guests, I want to start out with a brief video that reinforces the significance of this super important month, Women's History Month. Let's take a look at the video.
There's so many women that have gone before me and have taken to the sky.
Do you think there is a need for women in space?
Well, is there a need for men in space?
All these women have been my role models and my inspiration, and I couldn't be here today without them.
Özlem Türeci is the woman behind a leading COVID-19 vaccine.
Women bring an energy to rap that did not exist before.
And the Grammy goes to Cardi B.
Who knows how many others could have been the first if they'd had the chance to try.
Pattern Beauty is launching.
I'm the first person in my family to start a business.
Let's talk about some glass ceilings being shattered.
Junko Tabai summited heights no woman before her had reached.
We can show girls that anything is possible. It doesn't matter what they look like or where they come from. They can change the world.
Yes. If you're not fired up after watching that, I don't know what to tell you. Our guest for today is Audrey Fuller. She is the Vice President of Diversity and Inclusion and Customer Care Manager at DHI Mortgage. Join us, Audrey Fuller. Welcome to the Dr. James Show. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful, Dr. James. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm honored to be here. I really am. I'm fired up by that commercial, that's for sure.
I love it. We're going to jump right into this because we're seeing of late the 60 minutes flies by because the conversation is so compelling. So let's jump right in. Question for you. When you were an adolescent, a child, a baby, and I think we have a picture that shows you in that light, did you ever imagine that you would have a leadership role in corporate America?
I did not. As a matter of fact, when I was younger, I wanted to be either an archaeologist or a writer and a nurse for just a few minutes. And I say that because my mom was a nurse, but I just have this extra sensitive side that it was kind of harder for me to kind of see people sick all the time. But yeah, that's so funny. Oh my gosh. Yes, that's little Audrey right there.
I love it. Little Audrey. Question for little Audrey. And I think we have, again, a couple pictures to reinforce the question, but what's on the mind of a diversity inclusion vice president these days? What keeps you up at night? What's on your mind? What makes you smile? What makes you frown? Give us a sense of, from a diversity inclusion VP perspective and customer care manager, what's on your mind these days? What's trending?
Well, it's funny that you asked that question about what keeps me up at night. And I think, I work so hard to make sure that I stay very informed on what's happening in the world. So there's an awful lot of immersion that I have in terms of, reading a lot of articles, watching the news. Sometimes I don't try not to do it as much, but a lot of times I'm reading it. But I have to read all points of view, because it's very important for me to know, again, what's going on so that if someone brings something to me, I can speak to it, knowledgeably. And, for me, it really is truly about just trying to reinforce the message that we can come together and solve these problems that we have. We just have to stop for just a minute and listen and not be afraid to listen. So a lot of my conversations surround us finding a common ground, which of course we all work together. So we all have a common mission. Our mission is to get our home buyers into their homes. Our mission is to support each other. So there's something that we have in common. Now let's find other things that we might not have in common, but lean in and talk to each other and figure out ways to embrace that and celebrate that and realize that none of us can do what we do in the course of our business without each other every single day. So when we go back to the question about what keeps me up at night, sometimes, I have to find a way to kind of decompress from what I read, or decompress from some of the conversations that I have, just from the perspective that I'm a natural fixer. I want to fix everything. And I can't fix everything. It takes us coming together in a partnership to be able to do that. So sometimes my mind kind of goes over those questions in my mind of, how should I have maybe responded today on this? Or if somebody brings this to me tomorrow, what will I say? And that kind of thing. So yeah, but it's rewarding work. It can be challenging work, but I just really feel like it's a calling for me to step into that space and bring folks together and find a way to bring folks together so we can
When you decided to take on that role, was there any additional pressure being, number one, a woman, number two, a Black woman, a young Black female VP? Did you feel pressure? And if you did you feel pressure from the organization? Did you feel pressure from other women, pressure from other people of color, where you're the savior, Audrey Fuller is going to come to the rescue? Did you feel any additional pressure?
I did, but I think the pressure that I felt was really more from myself because, again, I didn't want to let anyone down. I wanted to meet everyone's expectations, which is not realistic. You can't meet everyone's expectations. There's going to be a certain group that's going to want you to handle things a certain way, come out of the box swinging, come out of the box, bringing all this on everyone. And I just don't believe that that's how you win folks over, is with just coming in and the first thing you do is, all right, no more of this, no more of that, no more of that. Don't ever say this, don't ever say that. You have to bring awareness to what's going on first before you can start speaking into the space. And so I really worked very hard to, create a space where anyone can come and talk to me about their stuff, regardless of, whether it's, hey, I said this before in a room full of folks and I didn't realize it was wrong, or, hey, I really wish that we could talk more about this, so a lot of people brought me some things and I just kind of naturally worked with it. But I'm the one that put more pressure on myself than anything. I have incredible support from my management team.
You mentioned earlier, you said you didn't want to let anyone down. What would letting people down, what would that have looked like? If you were not successful in your role, what type of impact might that have had on your organization, or what would you had seen to say, I didn't have the impact that I thought I would have?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would say letting folks down for me would be if I was starting not to see folks buy into where we're trying to go with this, and the doors have opened. They really have opened, and I've been just very proud of that. And I think the approach is the way that, my approach has been a good part of how we've opened that door.
Sure.
Again, because I'm a very approachable person, at least I try to be. And so again, for me, letting someone down would be, or letting the team down would be, we're just not close. We just don't want to have these conversations from this demographic, or we're not doing enough from this demographic. That would be where I would feel like I was letting everyone down. And the impact would be that we go, we get so bombarded with everything that's going on out there in the world, and it's already negative. The impact to me would be that we would just stay stuck in our little private spaces and not talk to each other, and not try to figure these things out.
You mentioned your approach. There are people watching right now who are struggling with diversity and inclusion initiatives or activities, exercises, the narrative, the approach. There are leaders out there, there are individual contributors, there are diversity council members, there are people out there who would love to hear about your approach.
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit about your approach to D&I and underrepresented groups and making everyone feel as though they're part of the solution?
Yes, I just believe you have to start with, again, commonality. So what do we have in common? We all have bias. Okay, we do. You can't say that you don't. That's just a natural part of who we are as humans. And recognizing that you have that, and sometimes it's unconscious. It literally is something because of how you were raised or what you were exposed to or experience that you had. Recognizing that is there, but taking the unconscious and bringing it conscious, bringing it forward so that you acknowledge that it is there. So we started with, what do we all have in common? Regardless of what's going on the outside, what do we all have in common? And we started with, let's talk about bias. And then we moved into emotional intelligence, because there again, emotions are at the center of just about every decision we make. It's, that's how we react. That's how we, establish an environment that we're in. And, talking through the components of emotional intelligence and having folks recognize where there's an opportunity to, to shape that. And we also did a lot of self-reflection, so we had some activities that we did where on your private time, you could go take the IAT, kind of be in your space and do your thing. And then you have some other self-assessments that you can do, but we always encourage everyone to also explore. So again, if we come back to, again, what we have in common, I know I keep saying that, but that is so true. That's where you can start to open up the doors that everybody starts to see that they all share something that they didn't really think that they did because they're on one side or another, I love
it. I love it. You have been extremely successful. But something tells me there have been others, sheroes, who poured into you. I want you to talk about the women in your life, namely the women in this picture, and talk about the role they played in your life and helping you grow into the successful woman that you are today. Let's take a look.
I love these ladies right here. They're on the left is my great grandmother, Fanny Bell. And she was all of about 4'9", and all the stories we had about her was that she was a pistol, and she was alive when I was younger. And apparently I used to go and get her pearls and put her pearls on. And then of course, like I said, she was 4'9", so her shoe was probably not that big. And so I would clunk around upstairs in her shoes. And she would say to my grandmother and to my mother, she said, that baby's going to do something. That's what she would say. And so there's my grandmother in the middle, and that's Elma Lee Davis McZeal. And she was the same way. She was, I believe in you. And she had this beautiful way of not even saying that she believed in me, even though she said it. It was just her support and just her presence. Every place I went, even when I had setbacks, she was still the one that was like, it's going to be okay, baby. It's going to be okay. Wow. And she, of course, picked that up from my great grandma. This baby's going to do something. And then we have my mom. She is absolutely my hero. She had it tough. She had it tough growing up. She had me.
Excuse me, I'm going to correct you for a second. She was your shero. This is Women's History Month. So we're talking about sheros.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Yes, she had me when she was 20 years old. She was in Detroit, Michigan, and by herself, and she didn't want to let anybody down, so no one knew that I was around until I was about 3 months old. Then she went back home and she took me obviously back with her, and she worked hard. She worked 2 jobs while going to nursing school, and we were on government assistance as well, which you're not supposed to be while you're working 2 jobs. But she couldn't feed myself and my sister and make sure we had lights on in the housing projects that we lived in if she didn't do what she did. And so she absolutely took advantage of those resources and moved forward. But she is another one that will definitely sing my praises. And she'll get on to me though. She'll get on to me.
Collectively, what did they teach you? What were some of the pearls or lessons that you haven't forgotten that has played a role in you being a successful businesswoman, mother, so forth? Yeah. Wife.
Well,
Yeah.
they set the stage for the fact that, you know what, you're going to get knocked down. They never told me that I wasn't going to get knocked down. They were very realistic about it. You know, as I got older, my grandmother would really talk to me about some of the things she went through as a woman, as a Black woman, growing up in the South, and, you know, the experiences that she had. And my mother, she flat out said, you know, it's going to be hard. Okay. It is going to be hard. Get ready for it. So that kind of set the stage. Now, I wasn't always looking around the corner waiting for the other shoe to drop, but at the same time, when it hit me, I was like, Mama said there'll be days like these.
Yeah.
She wasn't kidding. So I think they did that for me. And so that helped me to start to be a little bit stronger, so that when the tough times did come, you know, I regrouped and I was able to, you know, say, okay, this is challenge, this is hard today. But we can do hard things. We just have to move past that, find another place to go. It's not gonna last always.
You mentioned tough times. I want you to consider your professional career. Tell us about one of those tough times, and what did you do to rebound, to pivot, to get back up?
Yeah. I really sometimes tried to be too much of a perfectionist in certain things. Just basically because again, the whole fear of letting folks down, right? And I had a situation where I was just not focused. I was just not focused, and I made a mistake as a result of that, of not being focused. And overthinking, and be over analyzing, and it was a mistake. And I will just never forget thinking to myself, okay, this is going to be it for me. You know, this mistake is, you know, I should not have made. I know better, and here I am, and you know, this is, and luckily, you know, blessings, you know, bound. It was okay. You did it. These are the consequences.
Yeah.
Yes, you're still employed. So, you know, it wasn't anything that I think would probably offboard me, but at the same time, it was just one of those things where I just really tried not to make those kinds of mistakes. Sure. So, you know, this is where you learn, you know, grace for yourself too. You know? And I don't think we cut ourselves enough slack. When we make a mistake, we ruminate on it, you know, it's marinate, and then we get up the next day and it's still there and it's just beating us down. It's like, you're really more the one thinking about it, opposed to the individuals that, you know, have been exposed to the mistake that you made. So yeah, I mean, just learning how to give myself some grace.
I love it. And we can do a much better job at that. Let's continue the conversation. Before I go to the chat room, since this is Women's History Month, what does Women's History mean to you?
You know, it means to me, it's a way for us to celebrate our accomplishments, yes, but it's also an opportunity for us to highlight the struggles also that women have gone through, you know, and sometimes continue to go through, and especially in, you know, underrepresented communities and things like that. I mean, that's just, you know, understanding that there's a reason why a lot of this has occurred, and, you know, bringing our collective voices together to see what we can do to lift our sisters up. because it's heavy. It's heavy to carry some of this sometimes. And if you've never been in a situation where you've had to carry something like your lights get cut off, your car gets, you lose your house, you know, the daycare's closed because of the pandemic and you got your kids and then now they're at school, they know they got to come home for school. You've got to figure out how to, you know, do that and put food on the table, you know, and support, you know, your significant other. If you have somebody there that's your significant other, I mean, that's a lot. So yeah.
Wow, good stuff. Audrey, I'm gonna go to the chat room. First question says, for the first time in history, 2 women, Vice President Kamala Harris and Nancy Pelosi, sat behind the president, President Biden, during his State of the Union address. What does their presence signify to you?
Oh my goodness. I mean, that was definitely a proud moment for me to see the first.
When you saw that,
yeah,
what was the impact? I mean, we're used to seeing 2 men behind the president or a man and a woman. You saw 2 women.
Two
when you tuned in.
Yes, 2 powerful women, you know, 2 women who have had different experiences, but they've used, you know, their setbacks as a form of empowering themselves, but they've also used their strengths to move forward in the face of adversity. I mean, when you're constantly in the public eye and everything you do and say is scrutinized, you know, that's a tough role to be in. And so for me to see them, it's like, it just reminds me that, you know, they're going to say what they're going to say. You still have to keep going and do what you do. You still have to keep moving forward. You can't allow someone to set you back because of how they, you know, respond to you. So it was a proud moment to be able to see 2 powerful women behind the, you know, the President Biden. It was.
I have to admit, I was listening, but there were times where I was just focusing on the optics of what I was seeing. The 2 women. I'm like, wow.
Yeah, right. And I think in the last probably 24 months or so, we've seen a lot of firsts, you know. You know, I am proud that we have the firsts, but it'd be great if we could get to a point where it's not the first, this person, the first, this person, or the first, you know, it'd be great if we could, it's natural that, you know, everybody's there, we're at the table, we're all doing what we're doing, and it's not, oh, you're the first and you're the only, and, you know.
Yes, it becomes the way of life. Back at the chat room, it says the New York Times published an article about Serena Williams with a picture of her sister, Venus, on the cover. The Times has since apologized, but what is your take on this incident? Is this an honest mistake, an example of lazy journalism, or something else?
I mean, it could be part of both. I mean, as far as lazy journalism, I mean, you know, clearly Serena and Venus look totally different, you know. I've also had some friends, Asian friends, that have talked about, you know, Asian females that have talked about, you know, I was called this name, you know, my name is not this name. This is me, you know, you're talking to this person and you're calling them my name, but no, this is really, I'm me over here. And so, you know, it's one of those things you have to slow down and get to know who the person is visually and, you know, who they are as an individual. So, you know, it could have been just lazy journalism. Somebody just clicked on a picture, saw Williams and popped it in there. But it could also be, again, we talk about laziness, not taking the time to, you know, do your research, make sure you know who you're talking about.
It's unfathomable to me. Arguably, Serena Williams is the best female tennis player of all time, and you do a story on her and get the picture wrong. You put her sister.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
I digress though.
No, you know, that comes back to that thing that I talk about with Grace though too, is that, okay, so this person clearly has learned, and probably going forward will probably do a whole lot more research and make sure they know their topic before they do that again.
Let's stay with the chat room. Great questions. Q&A, what do you think are the barriers that society and businesses have that prevent us, I guess, the population, from embracing diversity, equity, and inclusion, and growing significantly in that place. So I guess the question is just overall barriers that you think limit, prohibit, slow the diversity, equity, and inclusion movement in organizations. And I would also say the impact that lack of movement have on people, women, underrepresented groups in corporate.
Right. Well, I would say that if you don't have leadership buy-in, your senior leadership buy-in, it's going to be challenging for you to, open the door to have the conversations about bias and emotional intelligence, and then get into conversations about racism and other things. It's going to be hard if you don't have that buy-in. So I would say anybody out there that's trying to tackle that challenge, start with your senior leaders, get them in the room and talk to them about why it's so important from your perspective. If you are a person of color, or a female, or anyone else, get them in the room and talk to them and say, hey, look, we've got to do this because our team is counting on us doing this. First of all, we need to do this so that we can work and partner together better. But you're going to have to understand that I'm not going to see things the way that you see them. I'm going to see them through my lens of whoever I am. You're going to see them through your lens. All I'm asking you to do is meet in the middle so that we can really, really, really break down why this is so important from not only the perspective of our team members that need to feel their sense of belonging, acceptance, inclusion, but also from a business perspective too. I mean, sometimes you find that leaders will listen more from what's going to affect the bottom line.
Yes.
You have team members that have high morale. What are they going to do? They're going to work a little bit more. When on the days when they don't have it, they're going to work a little bit more. They're going to give you a little bit more. They have a low morale. They're not going to do that. So if you kind of put it in those terms, and it depends on the leader as well. But, you've all can encounter leaders that have very strong leaning positions one way or another, and you have to be able to have that conversation. And you know what? It probably will take 3, 4, 5, 6 conversations before they're like, oh, okay. Because the thing is one of the deals is you don't want to have something happen and then you have to do something.
Yeah.
Because that is performative. That's not even, that's why I'm so grateful again with our leadership that there is the buy-in. It is part of the DNA. It's part of who we are. So that helps to set me up as well.
Audrey, how did you get that buy-in though? Because people are struggling with leadership buy-in. You have it. What did you do? What did you say? Or how did that manifest itself with your leadership saying, we're all in?
Well, look, our company, we've already been involved in the D&I space, not to the extent of like a lot of the programs that we have right now, but really and truly trying to pay very close attention to the culture to see what was going on. And so, our senior leaders were already, you got to make sure our team's taken care of. So there was that natural feeling that, we've got to make sure our teams are good. We got to make sure our managers are good. We got to make sure everybody, so there was already that. So I didn't have to really do much convincing. So I was very blessed in that space. And I do realize, again, from talking to some of my DEI practitioner friends, some of them do not have that. And some of the very conversations I'm having with them is, bring them in the room. You got to sit down and talk. Keep talking about it. Keep talking about it. And then drop the deal. If something happens and we start doing something afterwards, that's not going to be a good thing for you, for our company, that kind of thing. So, yeah.
Love it. I love it. Audrey, I'm going to ask you a series of questions.
Okay.
Well, actually, I'm going to give you a word. Actually, 2 words. And give you a blank. And I want you to fill in the blank after I give you the 2 words. Ready?
Yes.
I want a different answer each time because the 2 words aren't going to change.
Okay.
Okay. Here we go. Women are blank.
Resilient.
Women are
strong.
Women are
powerful.
Women are
innovative.
Women are
caregivers.
Women are.
We are pillars.
You are off the hot seat. Yes,
Woo.
yes.
Okay.
Woo. It's getting hot in here.
Yes, it is.
I'm going to put a picture of someone who is trending up these days. She's also a pioneer. She's about to participate in some hearings. She will also be the first. Talk to us about Ms. Jackson.
Wow. You know, what can I say? She has the credentials to back up what, you know, the role that she is nominated for.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for me, the frustrating part is, you know, why do you have to, you know, consistently put yourself out there to show paper to paper that you're, you know, that you're able to do the job? Yes, clearly we want to examine qualifications and things like that, but it again, that's just one of those big frustrations for me. But she's more than capable of doing the job, and I think that, you know, hopefully we won't have too many issues with getting her nominated. But I mean, I'm just really inspired by, you know, you can't tell me that she doesn't know what she's going to be up against in the process. And she's still like, okay, I'm going to keep walking forward, because again, she's standing on what she has to offer and what she knows. And the skills, and her record speaks for itself. And you know, we talked at one time about imposter syndrome, and I know that at times,
talk about that. Yes.
You know, I know at times that can be a big thing for you, just a lot of people in general. But if you're the first, it's like, okay, do I belong here? You know, what are they going to think? Did they think that I'm only here because I'm African American, or I'm, you know, Chinese or whatever? Is that what they're thinking? What are they thinking? And then you kind of have that doubt that sets in. And I'm like, no, I have the skills to move into this job. You know, I have the skills to perform this job. And so for her, she's going to have to, you know, step out there again and, you know, unfortunately rehash the resume to get folks to buy into, and some folks anyway, to buy into where she's going with that. But that's a very real thing when you are out in the spotlight like that, you know. So I'm proud to see that she's doing.
She will become the first African American female Supreme Court justice. Wow, things are changing. There have been innumerable women who have made strides in our country. I want you to think, who would be, not including your mother and grandmother and other family members, who would be on your Mount Rushmore for women? We're going to show you a picture of a few that you might want to choose from, but who would make your Mount Rushmore for women? And you don't have to choose any of these, or you can, but who would make your, considering your lifetime, who would make your Mount Rushmore for women?
I would definitely say RGB for sure.
Yeah.
And then I would have to say Shirley Chisholm. You know, I always think about what she said about, you know, if you going for a seat at the table, there's no seat at the table, bring a folding chair. that says a lot about finding a way to get up, scoot up at the table if nobody's going to make room for you. I would have to say Dr. Maya, Dr.
Yes.
I would have to say, yeah.
Yes. We have Maya Angelou, we have Anne Frank, Simone Biles, right? Sandra Day O'Connor. Right-hand corner is someone who I got to know intimately during my diversity and inclusion, or my early diversity and inclusion days. Is Jane Elliott. Jane is the woman who did the exercise with her students in the late 60s, of the brown eyes, blue eyes exercise, where she treated her children either favorably or unfavorably for a day based on their eye color. And when the group was on top, their grades soared, they had much more fun, they were given additional time at recess, and they had a phenomenal day. And then the next day she flipped it and the brown eyes were on top, and they had the same sunny disposition, and the blue eyes the next day had the frowns, the moans, upset, wanted to go home. She did that exercise as a result of Martin Luther King Jr. being assassinated, and she wanted to teach her children, her students, about racism and the things associated with it. So
yeah.
good stuff. Good stuff.
I would say that we could add her as well. That was a bold exercise.
Yeah.
Very bold exercise.
Absolutely. You talked about confidence, resiliency. What has inspired you as a woman, professional mom, wife? What has inspired you in your life?
So many things. I would say really, my children, my boys, my young men, they inspire me. They have been my why from day one. They really have. Both of them, I looked at them and I was like, what am I going to teach these young Black men as they're growing up? Of course, I had help as well. But what am I going to teach them from a mom's perspective? And as they grew, they learned so many different things, and they've taught me so much. My son on the left is in the military, and he is very much a soldier.
Soldier.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm so very proud of him and
Let's
his
take a look.
commitment to the service of our country. Yeah, I'm very proud of him. Yes. And he's very logical, but he's got a soft touch, but he can be a soldier when he needs to. He can be, so he keeps me inspired, and he will call me occasionally and say, hey, Mom, I know this is not the Army, I know you're not doing the Army thing, but can you help me kind of have a more civilian conversation? And so, having him, respect me as not only his mother, but as a female leader, that's huge.
I love it. And the other one looks like he does a little bit of weightlifting and throws people around.
Yes, yeah, he free agent, professional athlete, NFL, and he's also an inspiration to me too. He's been through a lot with his college career, high school career, college career. Just being in NFL, that's not an easy business, despite what people think. And I don't know of anybody that could go through as much rejection as those NFL players.
Yes.
And then try to, rebound and get right back on the horse and just keep having to prove themselves day after day and not let it affect them mentally. So what I've learned from my younger son is, again, that times are going to get tough, and the things that my grandmother and mom and great grandma said, it's times are going to get tough. It's just what you do and how you respond on the other side of that time when you face plant, so yeah, and he's the other one that'll call me.
No test, no testimony, no mess, no message. You talked about inspiration. I think this next picture, there's some inspiration in that too. I think this person plays a small role in bringing inspiration into your life on a daily basis. Let's take a look at you and Boo.
Yes, that's my guy. Yeah, it's funny because we started out as like best friends, and I was a senior in high school, and he was a junior, and we just stayed in touch, and he went off and did his thing, I went off and did my thing. We just stayed in touch, and he would the funny thing about him is that he has in common with a lot with both of my sons. So he was also in the military, but he also played football, not on the professional area, but he also played football. So he was able to teach one how to make sure that the patches were straight and everything was ironed. And he was teach the other one, hey, you're either injured or you're not injured. If you're not injured, get up, stop crying.
There you go.
Put dirt on it and keep going. So yeah, that's my guy.
I love it. Let's go back to the chat room. It says, do you think it's more difficult for a woman to provide leadership in the DEI space than, I guess, a man? If so, explain. Do you think it's more difficult for a woman to provide leadership in the DEI space? If so, please explain.
I do not. I actually see in some instances where some of my guy DEI practitioners are struggling a little bit because, for whatever reason, they're kind of seen as maybe being a little too strong-handed, a little too strong, and forceful, not really meaning to. They're really having very good, productive conversations. We've actually walked through some of those conversations. And I'm like, no, that's you said it right. I think it may just be your presence. And unfortunately, sometimes the presence can be a little threatening, whether it's an unconscious bias situation or, just a perception or, what are you really trying to say to me? Are you getting on to me about this? And so for me, I don't have that approach. So for me, it's just a conversation, and it just feels like we're sitting down having coffee, but we're talking about something serious. So yeah, no, I don't think that it's harder for a woman.
Yeah. All right. Let's go back a little bit. Let's go back 5 years when you were 25 years old. What would you tell, or what advice would you have for your 25-year-old self? So let's just go back a couple years. What advice, now that you've lived these years, what advice would you give 25-year-old version of Audrey Fuller?
Oh, I would definitely say, relax. I mean, relax.
You seem so cool. What do you mean relax? You're chill.
Uptight. I was uptight. I mean, I was like, I got these loans I got to get done. I got this one over here with strep throat I got to go get from daycare, and this one over here is, not potty trained. I mean, I would just I would just tell myself to just relax, but I would also tell myself to be more forward thinking. I mean, it's okay to live in the moment, but be more forward thinking about what I wanted to do with my career. I kind of just rode the wave of whatever came my way without a thought of, how do I progress so that I can move into a different position or, be elevated. And a lot of that was I was just in survival mode at the time, just kids, money, that kind of thing. I was just in survival mode. So I didn't really think about anything other than I got to get this check. I got to make sure daycare's paid. I got to get these extra bonuses. I've got to do this. I got to make sure the cars don't go, so right. It was that. So I would tell myself to really just relax a little bit and, think a little bit further ahead than where I was.
I love it. I love it. Now, this interview is going to go viral, right? A ton of people is going to see it. Someone does see it and they're like, we got to get her. We got to bring her in to speak to our next generation of female leaders, because I'm sure she has some great advice. She has a compelling story. When you get that opportunity, what are you going to say to the women in that room?
Three words. I mean, and I kind of borrowed this from you, but I didn't borrow your words, but you got this. That's what I'm going to say. You got this. I mean, you do, you have it, and you don't realize it sometimes, because sometimes you're the only one that's holding you back. I'm not saying there's some systems that are in the way, or some, unintentional consequences because of somebody else's behavior, but you really do have this. And it took me to get to this age for me to realize I was always more than I thought that I was, and that's not an arrogant statement. That truly is me being, happy to be in the power that I'm in right now. Yeah. And so that's what I would tell you. You got this. And the thing is most of them would think, and they're, no, I really don't have this. No, I don't have that. I don't have that. Well, okay. By the end of this conversation, you're going to realize you got this.
Got this.
That's what I'm saying. You got this. So
now, someone's going to raise their hand and say, Mrs. Fuller, listen, I'm working 8 to late. I'm working 25/8. I live here, or I live in front of my screen. They call this thing work-life balance. I don't think it exists. What advice would you give for that?
Well, you're gonna have to make a choice. And I'm not saying neglect your duties at your job, but you're going to have to make a choice of self-care. And so I think sometimes folks run into these issues where self-care for them is like, I need to go hit the treadmill for an hour, or I need to go to the gym afterwards, or I need to, but there's preparation involved in that. And sometimes you don't have the hours. So what's wrong with, especially if you work remote and you do have a treadmill at home, going and getting on the treadmill for 5 minutes, that's still getting on the treadmill for 5 minutes. And then trying to make sure that you divvy out your day so that your second shift doesn't start at 5 o'clock. I mean, just think about it. I mean, a lot of us are on Zoom calls all day long. And sometimes the second shift starts at 5 o'clock, which means that's when you're getting a lot of your work done after you've gotten your meetings out of the way. But you have to really just plan your time, whether that's getting up a little earlier in the morning for your own self-care and knocking out a few things to jump on. That way you can have a time that you have to, stop. And it's easier said than done, but it's just like, start the habit, start like little small ways of, just balancing your time. You're important. You're important. So take care of you. That stuff's going to be there when you get finished. So take care of yourself. You have to.
I think if it was switch, maybe we would be better at it. Life, work balance, where we thought to live first,
right?
Work second,
right? Right.
I don't know. We talked about your sons a little earlier. Mm-hmm. When you were rearing them, did you ever talk about how to treat women?
I was not the best about that early on. I think it wasn't until they got a little bit older, and even now, and they do a phenomenal job. They're great. But even now, I will find myself thinking, okay, you're about to get married, so let's talk a little bit about, some mistakes Dad and I made, with our communication, and let's try to talk that out. So, just really, more now, I guess, since they're older. But I do think that, my husband was very, that's my wife over there you're talking to. That's your mother, but that's my wife,
Right.
So that, he would do what he could to talk to him. But, both of us grew up in kind of, homes where the dads weren't present. Mm-hmm. And so it was a challenge to kind of see, from his perspective, him to try to figure out how to be a man to men when he didn't have a man around, and me, mm-hmm. Be a woman to men and not have a dad that, stuck up for me kind of thing. So, we had to learn.
When people at your organization think about you, when they hear the name Audrey Fuller, what do you think comes to mind? And what do you want to come to mind if it's not the same? So what do you think when people hear Audrey Fuller, Vice President, Diversity, Inclusion, Customer Care Manager, what comes to mind and what do you want to come to mind?
I do think that when people hear my name, if they don't know me, they might think the title is something that's like, oh, we better not say that. We better. I think once, we better not act that way. And
look out.
That's true.
Our son's in the military. Your husband was too.
Yeah. And I'm not exactly short myself, so. No, I think when people hear my name, I hope they hear friend. I hope they hear that I'm a friend. Yeah, I think that even though, there's leadership behind what I do and there's management and, there's consistent course correction, I want them after they leave the conversation with me to, first of all, leave with their dignity intact and say, she was a true, advocate. She was a true friend to me in a moment when I was not having my best human moment. Mm-hmm. And that is what I would really want our team to see with me.
I love it. Let's keep going. Chat room says, what 3 points would you give a woman just graduating from college and wants to be a leader in some industry? I think we spoke to it a little before when we talked about emerging leaders, women, next generation of leaders. Any additional tools you would give to them or encouragement you would give?
Yeah, well, first of all, I would ask you to identify why do you want to, like if you have a specific job, why do you want to go into that career, that field? Is it because everybody else is going into the field, or is it because, you've heard about all this money that someone could make? Because just because everybody else is doing it and just because there's all this money involved doesn't necessarily translate into something that's going to feed your soul, So that to me, and especially as I've gotten older, is very important that you're into something that you really want to do and you're going to put your all in. Mm-hmm. The second is listen. Listen and observe. Really, if you find somebody in your organization, once you get on board, that is a strong leader and has a lot of really positive things to say and a lot of really impactful things to say, listen, sit back and listen and watch and observe. And that's how I've learned to develop, is by being quiet sometimes and listening, and then finding your voice within,
Ooh, say more.
yeah, finding your voice within what you're doing. You can take it and make it you can make what you're doing right now, even if you're doing the same thing for 7 or 8 years, you can make it your, sign your name on it. That's your signature, right? Write it out, make it yours, but, expand it out to the team. And the reason why I'm saying that is because when I was in a position prior to this role, I was there for several years, but I still found ways within that role to really make it, to have some creativity, some way to, really just spark myself, spark the team around me too. So, find, that's what you're going to do in there, and just, make it yours, make your, and the funny thing is that folks actually end up realizing, oh my goodness, all this time she was doing all these wonderful things within this little small, just a box that she was in, or he was in. And now it's like this, wow, okay. So then you get recognized for what you've done, and hopefully
this is good. Let's stay with this theme. I want you to walk us through, talk us through, take us back, tell us the story of when you found your voice. When you said, I got it, okay, all right, look out, I am confident in me, I have found my voice. Because people are going to say, okay, I hear you, find it, but where do I look? Where do I go? What do I read? Who do I talk to? Right. Tell us about when you found your voice.
It's hard to put an exact date on it, but I will tell you that I've had plenty of times throughout my career where I have found my voice in different places and different levels, different times. And it's funny because it just kind of emerges when it's supposed to. Like, I'm very calm in my, my feeling about the situation, even if the situation's not the best situation and I have to speak to it, but I just get very calm. And then all of a sudden it's like the voice comes out, and I'm very deliberate and intentional with what I say. I'm very chatty, but I also know that
no, you're chatty? Get out of here.
Yeah, but I also know that, when I speak up, it needs to have been thought through, not overanalyzed, but it needs to be thought through so that when I say what I'm going to say, it's going to be impactful. And it's just different pockets of time that have, different situations where I found that the voices just emerged because it was just time for it to do that. And did everybody like it? No. Did I catch flack for it sometimes? Absolutely. But, I don't really owe an apology because I said what I said for the reason of trying to move us forward and not trying to hold us back, so that's.
In the workplace or just in general, you hear the moniker or the stereotype that women are too emotional. Can you think of a time at work where you wanted to get emotional and you held it back because of that, or you let it out because that's how you felt and you didn't care? That's how you felt.
Yeah, and that's another situation where there's pockets of time, but I understand that, in the professional environment, you don't want people crying all the time, but my goodness, there's so much we're carrying right now. I mean, if you've got somebody on a Zoom call and they're crying, let them go. I mean, talk to them and just try to be there and listen and be a support for them. I just think, again, we don't give ourselves enough human moments to be. We're not robots. If we were robots or machines, I can see us trying to say not to. But yeah, I mean, there is actually a time and a place. But I have had situations where I've sat there and a tear has come. And again, that tear was the only word I had. At the time, there was nothing else that I could say.
What helps now? I think my research team found you in action on some boat, and I think you in this particular position, I think it might be one of your go-to moves when you need to just chill out. When you need to chill out. Looks like you're doing a little bit of yoga or something.
Yes. So that the funny thing about that is that was actually in Vietnam, and we were on a boat called a junk, And we had a gentleman on there. He was a former monk, and he was giving us some, walking us through some yoga poses. And I thought, this was always, one of my go-tos. It just kind of means that, I'm standing straight, standing solid, even on one foot. But I wanted to kind of test myself here because the boat was doing like this. And I wanted to see if I could stand up straight and hold on.
Right.
Because just think about, the ground always moves beneath us anyway, whether it's a situation we're going through or whatever, and we have to stand our ground. We have to be able to find a way to
what a lesson.
Find a way to stand up. So yes, yoga is my go-to. During the pandemic, prior to that, I was going to a hot yoga studio like quite a bit. And during the pandemic, I loved it so much. I was like, I'm going to go ahead and get certified. So about the only yoga that I do right now for anyone else is if I have somebody reach out to me and say, hey, can we set some time aside and I can do a class with you online. And so, but no, I also, because Texas is so hot, that's my hot yoga studio. I go outside in the backyard and I roast for a little bit and come back in. But that's my go-to. That's my go-to.
What's next for you as we begin to wind down this interview, which has flown by? They all do. But as you think about your tomorrows and your next years or your future, what's next for you? What's next?
I am, I've been writing for a while. And, the feeling that I have right now is that it's coming out and I need to keep going and not stop. So, I do hope that one day I'll, be a published author. I mean, I do hope that. And I feel like I have a story to tell, and several stories to tell. I like to write poetry. And so I just, that's kind of my next step. But the other thing is I really am just very in tune with what's going on with folks emotionally and the stress that they have. And so a wellness coach as well.
Yeah.
Because I'm working on 2 more certifications as well to go along with the practice. And it's going to
doing 2.
Yeah, it's going to take me a little time because I have to incrementally do that. But that's what I want to do. I want to be a safe space holder for folks to just come and drop in, sit there, journal, yoga, listen to music, drink tea. I know. Yeah.
You stay busy. I saw that your causes include children, civil rights and social action, economic empowerment, education, around poverty alleviation. You're busy.
Yeah. And, you start with one person at a time in your community. I mean, sometimes it's just as close as your friends, that you might see that they're struggling. And that there's opportunities there for them to maybe tweak some things to move, in a different direction. Or I had an opportunity to speak to several teenage young men back maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And I talked to them about just life and what was things that possibly could happen to them when they got to college. And it was very well received. And I was just, you just take little, pieces and pockets of folks, those opportunities, those divine appointments that get set for you, and you take advantage of it. You drop down in there and do what you're called to do.
I love it. Thank you for spending time with us during Women's History Month.
Thank you.
You are indeed a role model, a goal model, a shiro. Your organization is blessed to have you at the helm of this, I'm not going to say initiative, this way of life, because I don't want diversity to be a program. So thank you for spending time. And for those of you who joined us, told you every time, every week, informational and transformational. As Audrey said, you got this, and you've just been impacted. See you later.